Welcome, everyone. Glad you could join us today. We're going to do something a bit different, more of a storytelling session, really. We're diving into some truly chilling human experiences. These are real accounts, stories that really blur that line between, what's solid reality and what might just be in the mind. These experiences are often so unsettling, they leave people questioning everything.
And that's what makes them so fascinating, isn't it? The sheer power of the human mind to create these deeply convincing, sometimes terrifying realities. It just shows how subjective our perception can be. Our brain is like this incredible, sometimes unpredictable canvas.
Exactly. So let's get into some of these stories. The first one takes place back in 2005. Picture this. A young woman, remote farmhouse, and she's woken up suddenly by her grandmother's screaming, just crazed screaming. She runs in, and her grandmother's just cowering under the covers, trembling. When she finally calmed down enough to speak, she said she saw a red figure standing by the door, and the only way she could describe it was Satan. What's really striking, though, is her certainty. She insisted she had never hallucinated in her life, and she knew what she saw was real. Imagine feeling that strongly about seeing all that.
That level of conviction is really something, especially when the vision itself is so archetypally terrifying.
Yeah. Okay, then there's another visual one. A 67-year-old retired teacher. She goes to the hospital because she's seeing these odd-looking faces hovering over her. She described them really vividly. Large teeth, eyes, and ears, and shaped kind of like a football, stretched out horizontally. Now, the hospital ran tests, right? And they ruled out the usual suspects, infection, drug reaction, stuff like that. Nothing. Her family was so freaked out, they actually asked a priest about an exorcism.
Well, this case is interesting because it points towards something specific medically. She was diagnosed with Charles Bonnet syndrome. It often happens when someone has significant vision loss. The brain, it's not getting enough visual data, so the visual cortex kind of makes stuff up on its own, fills in the blanks. So you might see little people, animals, patterns, or distorted faces like she did.
Oh, okay.
And critically, these are usually purely visual, no sounds attached, and often the person sort of knows it's not real even while it's happening. It's the brain compensating, basically.
That makes sense. Purely visual, no sound. Okay. So, shifting from that, what about when these things seem tied to really deep emotions, like grief? There's a story from 1995, a man named Tomakata. He was understandably deeply depressed after his mother died from cancer. He just shut himself away for days. Then one night he wakes up. He hears the floorboards cracking like someone's walking on them. And he looks, and he sees his mother standing in the doorway, just watching him. He apparently screamed so loudly his neighbors called the police. Doctors checked him out later, found nothing physically wrong, and he says he never saw her again after that.
Grief can manifest in such powerful ways. The mind trying to process that intense loss.
Yeah, it's intense. And then there's this childhood memory someone shared. They called it Mom in the Closet. Okay, so this person grew up with just their single mom. Mom always checked on them at night, the usual routine. But one night, the kid hears something in the closet, looks up, sees Mom at the foot of the bed. His mom gives a little playful wave, tells the kid, go back to sleep. But then, this is the creepy part, the mom walks over to the closet, goes inside, pulls the door almost shut, just a crack left open, and then pokes her head through the crack, just her eye peeking through, watching. The kid actually thought it was funny, like a game, and fell asleep. Next morning, the kid asks the real mom why she was hiding in the closet. And the mom is just confused, concerned. Says she hadn't been in the room all night. That's when the person realized it must have been a hallucination, or maybe a really vivid dream. They said it was the clearest of only 3 experiences like that they ever had.
Wow. That blurring between dream, memory, and waking reality, especially in childhood or during intense emotional states like Tomakata's grief, it's profound. The brain is trying to make sense of internal states, sometimes by projecting them outwards in these incredibly tangible ways. It feels completely real in the moment.
It really does. Okay, so what about just pure exhaustion, pushing the mind too far? Think about a truck driver. Grueling schedule, late nights. This one night they'd run out of coffee, trying hard not to nod off. Suddenly they see this black figure coming up in the road, right in their path. Had to swerve violently to miss it. Looks in the rearview mirror, and the figure is still there, just standing in the middle of the road. Now, this trucker wasn't usually confrontational, but they felt this weird urge to stop, get out, and see what it was. They stop, look back, nothing. Nobody there, miles from anywhere, totally alone on the road. They ended up just pulling over further down and falling asleep right there in the cab. Figured their mind was just playing tricks from being so tired.
Extreme fatigue absolutely does that. It impairs judgment, messes with sensory processing.
Right, and that connects to this next one. Single mother, working 2 jobs, long drive home, late at night, exhausted. She's fighting sleep, trying everything to stay awake. And then she hears giggling from behind her. Looks in the rearview mirror and sees her 3-year-old son looking back at her from the back seat. She slams on the brakes, heart pounding, turns around. Back seat's empty. Of course, the child is with the sitter. But here's the kicker. Right after that, her phone rings. It's the sitter, telling her the little boy had just fallen down the stairs and broken his ankle. Because of that timing, the mother absolutely believes that mothers have some kind of sixth sense about their kids.
Yeah, see, that's a perfect example of how the exhausted brain can generate something, the giggle, the image, and then because of the coincidence with the phone call, it weaves this narrative. The fatigue creates the hallucination, and the mind, seeking meaning, links it to the real event, interpreting it as intuition or a sixth sense. It's trying to make sense of the bizarre internal experience.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Okay, let's talk about something really terrifying now, sleep paralysis. This account is from a 13-year-old. Heavy sleeper. Went to bed late. Wakes up or feels awake but can't move a muscle, only their eyes. Looks over to the corner of the room and sees, quote, the most horrifying thing they had ever witnessed. Describes it as a man probably about 8 feet tall with a cut, open mouth, dripping blood made to look like a smile. And he's holding a huge carving knife. Just like starts hovering towards the bed. And the kid is just frozen. Can't move, can't scream, pure terror. The man reaches the bed, raises the knife. The kid just squeezes their eyes shut, waiting, bracing for it. Then opens their eyes, the man's gone. And they can move again. Instantly knew it must have been sleep paralysis.
Yeah, sleep paralysis is exactly that. It's a glitch, basically.
Yeah.
Your brain wakes up, becomes conscious, but the body is still in REM sleep mode where your muscles are temporarily paralyzed. It's called atonia, stops you acting out dreams. So you're awake, aware, but can't move, and that state often comes with these vivid, often scary hallucinations. Seeing figures, feeling pressure, hearing things. It's the dream state bleeding into waking awareness.
Okay, well, building on that, here's one that sounds even more intense. A 19-year-old had sleep paralysis 3 times before, so kind of knew what it was. But this one night, much worse, wakes up, paralyzed, sees a little girl standing by the wall staring me down, describes her eyes as nothing but black, pure black. Then the girl starts walking towards the bed, but taking these giant, exaggerated steps, like stretching her legs way more than humanly possible, super unnatural. Reaches the bed, and then threw her hands around my throat and squeezed. The person writing this emphasized that they could feel it, really felt like they couldn't breathe, thought I was going to die. Total panic, but still couldn't move. Then suddenly it stops. Their own hands fly up and hit them in the face. They're fully awake, gasping. The girl is gone. But they said the worst part wasn't just the choking feeling, it was watching that little girl, choking me almost to death, and just sitting there watching and feeling it, unable to do anything. That helplessness.
That tactile element, the feeling of being choked, is common too, unfortunately. The brain can absolutely generate physical sensations during paralysis. Pressure on the chest, feeling touched, even pain. It's activating those sensory pathways internally. It feels completely real because, to your brain in that moment, it is real. A terrifying simulation.
Truly chilling.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple more accounts here. These ones leave you with, well, lingering doubts. This person lives out in the country. Home alone late one night, woods all around, hears a scream, like a legit scream coming out in the woods. Goes outside onto the back deck with a flashlight, shines it around, and the beam lands on something that makes them freeze. Describes a tall figure, probably twice as tall as me, and it had some kind of long trunk hanging from its face that went down to its waist, almost like an elephant. It was totally black, no color, and it was moving towards them in a creepy march. They backed slowly into the house, slid the glass door shut, keeping their eyes on where it was.
Yeah.
But it just vanished, completely gone. They really hope it was just in their head, but they make a point of saying, I wasn't tired. Unlike the trucker, leaves that question mark.
Yeah, when you remove the obvious triggers like fatigue or known conditions, it does deepen the mystery, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, final story. Teenage guy at some rural resort place in Pennsylvania. Kind of creepy setting. Not many people around. He's outside, looks up at the main lodge building's second floor window, sees a teenage girl looking down at him. From a distance, he thought she looked cute. He waves. No reaction. Later, he's bored, messing around on the swing set. Looks over near the woods and sees the same girl again, just standing there, staring at him. He starts walking over, thinking maybe he'll talk to her. But as he gets closer, he realizes she wasn't as cute as I thought she was. So there was just something about her face that just gave off a creepy vibe, especially her eyes and mouth. He gets about halfway there and she just turns completely around and bolts, runs straight into the woods. He didn't see her again at the resort. Okay, but then they're driving home, miles and miles away from the resort. He happens to be thinking about the girl, looks out the window, and he sees the same girl standing by the tree line on the side of the highway. As the minivan speeds past, he swears her head turned, tracking the van, always looking right at me, even through the tinted minivan windows.
He freaked out, asked his parents if they saw her. They saw nothing, just trees. So he eventually had to accept, it was all in my head and that the girl was never even there. But imagine seeing that miles away. Wow. These stories, they're just profoundly unsettling, aren't they? They really push the edges of what we think is real, the fear they cause, the way they make people question their own minds. It's powerful stuff.
It absolutely is. And we've heard a range here, some potentially explainable by things like Charles Bonnet or sleep paralysis, others tied to grief or exhaustion, and some just remain deeply strange. But what ties them together is the mind's incredible, sometimes terrifying ability to construct these vivid internal realities. It shows resilience, but also vulnerability. Trying to make sense of the inexplicable is a very human thing.
A really compelling and, chilling look into perception.
Yeah.
We really hope these stories resonated with you, maybe made you think. Thanks so much for joining us for this storytelling journey. If you found these accounts as captivating and unsettling as we did, please do us a favor, like this, share it, and subscribe to the channel, Horror Docs. We've got more spine-tingling tales coming your way. Until next time, take care, and maybe sleep with a nightlight on tonight.